Over the past decade, classic games have regularly found their way onto modern platforms more than ever, thanks to the increased normalization of remakes, remasters, and collections. While I guess there is justified distaste for these practices when it's done in needless excess, such as Sony's bizarre infatuation with remastering games from a single generation ago, actual classics receiving this treatment is always welcome in my book. One set of titles I'm glad to see remastered is the first two games in the Lunar series, a franchise I missed entirely when growing up. These genre-defining RPGs were beloved by many back in the day, but have become largely forgotten about in modern times. So, as you probably could have guessed, I was pretty eager to discover whether these entries have still held up 2 decades later. Surprisingly, they have stood the test of time magnificently, being some of the most simple, yet most enjoyable takes on the JRPG genre that I've experienced in recent memory. So, let's unpack why that is. Both entries in the Lunar Remastered Collection bring back the tone and premise of the classic fantasy RPGs, which is genuinely refreshing in an era that attempts subversion so often that it becomes the new norm. The first game in the collection, Lunar Silver Star story, features the hero named Alex, a youth yearning to become the world's next Dragon Master, which is a legendary protector linked to the goddess Althena. Additionally, Alex's friend and potential love interest, Luna, proves to be a vital companion, with her tremendous singing proficiency seemingly linked to a larger plot beyond their understanding.
Oh, Alex, I should have known you'd be late again.
To be candid, the Silver Star story's narrative is mostly a passive backdrop that doesn't stand out on its own. Despite the frequently mentioned lore surrounding Althena and the previous Dragon Master Dyne, the real heart of this adventure lies in the main cast and the NPCs. Each village brims with interactable townspeople, whose dialogue updates continually, often providing humorous moments. While the world itself is relatively compact and straightforward, making it clear to see how to progress, taking time to smell the roses by chatting with the NPCs lends the journey much needed personality. Honestly, this consistent practice reminded me of what the Trell series does today. However, the adventure of the Silver Star story itself suffers from a noticeably weak protagonist, who, despite having a lofty goal and close bond with Luna, remains mostly silent and rarely compelling. I might have even preferred a fully silent hero because the few times Alex does speak, whether it's voice acted or not, it's a little jarring. His lines stay surface level, offering little depth beyond what's established early on. In contrast, Luna is the real highlight, while the rest of the party feels one note, but at least entertaining in their interactions.
Wishing on a dream that seems far off, hoping it will come today.
On the other hand, the direct sequel, Lunar Eternal Blue, follows Hito, a young archaeologist longing for adventure 1,000 years after the events of the first game. His wish is indirectly granted when he meets Lucia, a stoic girl searching for the goddess Althea, leading to a worldwide quest.
Hero, look away! You're being rude! I know Grandpa Gwyn taught you better manners than this!
Like the Silver Star story, Eternal Blue is linear and features similar endearing NPC interactions. However, the adventure itself is notably gripping, partially thanks to Hito's role as a fully voiced non-silent protagonist. His relationship with Lucia and the other party members feels more personal, while the pacing and setting are allowed time to breathe, making everything click more smoothly. One of the most pleasant surprises here is how both games have been visually enhanced, respecting their original pixel art style. The remastered sprites look crisp, and while the developers didn't completely overhaul every element, the subtle cleaning up of the backgrounds and character portraits goes a long way in preserving that beloved 90s JRPG charm. The anime cutscenes, which was an iconic aspect of the Lunar series, are beautifully rendered with that nostalgic 2000 animation style. However, if you play in the widescreen mode, the sudden switch from 4:3 cutscenes to 16:9 gameplay can be a little jarring. Thankfully though, both games ran smoothly and load times were minimal on modern systems. I didn't notice any game-breaking bugs or performance dips even during more crowded combat sections. Saving and loading are near instant, making it easy to jump in and out of gameplay sessions without frustration. Combat in these Lunar entries is rather straightforward, primarily consisting of familiar commands, attacks, items, and spells, alongside traditional experience gain and equipment purchases. Anyone who's vaguely familiar with RPGs will pick up things quickly. The only potential stumbling block is the unconventional UI, which feels a little confusing at first, but becomes stylish and slick once you get used to it. Still, Eternal Blue's per item carrying capacities contrast with the Silver Star story's shared carrying limit, which can be frustrating until you adapt to it. It may sound like I'm oversimplifying Lunar's combat, but there isn't much else to note here. Characters learn new skills as they level up, and each town offers new gear to keep your stats in check. Combined with some generally straightforward dungeon layouts, with often just have a few dead ends, there's no specific hook to set these titles apart from other JRPGs. The somewhat unique element is how turn-based actions move allies and enemies around a 2D plane, affecting skill range and positioning. However, this is more supplemental than a core mechanic. I personally found neither entry brutally difficult, but they can catch you off guard at times, prompting a few brief bouts of experience grinding. When entering new areas, you can't simply rely on the auto battle because status elements and high enemy damage can quickly overwhelm you. Eternal Blue pushes this challenge further. The open area alone can defeat you in a few battles if you're not paying attention to your healing. Fortunately, dungeons and towns both contain goddess statues that fully restore your party for free. Also, encounters are symbol-based, meaning that there's no random battles. For me, Lunar's gameplay system felt like a refreshing return to basics, where leveling up and gearing up without too many modern complexities made the adventure. The absence of difficulty options reinforces this focus, although bosses still demand careful MP and item management. Beyond the visual enhancements, the most notable additions are the new English voice tracks. Eternal Blue in particular benefits from more frequent voice-acted scenes, whereas the Silver Star story includes them more sporadically. The option to speed up battles is another welcome modern touch, making repeated encounters feel less tedious over time. Returning fans may be curious about bonus content or cutscenes found in older versions, like PS1 or the Sega release. The developers here have largely tried to consolidate the best known additions here, but there's no massive expansion of story or side quests. Instead, the focus remains on streamlining these games for modern audiences, ensuring they're more accessible without losing their classic charm. Depending on your playstyle, each title can take around 20 to 30 hours to complete, with the Silver Star story usually on the lower end, and Eternal Blue taking a bit longer due to more substantial plot developments. There are multiple endings or major branching paths, so replay value here hinges on whether you enjoy revisiting the story and characters. Still, the streamlined features and the inherent charm of the Lunar series might tempt returning players to go through certain sections again, especially if you initially miss some optional NPC dialogue or treasures. The Lunar Remastered Collection is a solid package considering you're essentially getting two beloved RPGs updated for current hardware. For the asking price, it feels fair, but your mileage may vary depending on whether you're a series newcomer or a returning fan who's already owned multiple versions of this game. That said, both games offer enough nostalgic appeal, new voice work, and quality of life tweaks to justify their investment. The Lunar series has seen multiple re-releases over the years, from Sega CD to PlayStation to Game Boy Advance and PSP, each with varying degrees of changes. Longtime fans might appreciate how this version tries to blend the best elements from prior releases, like refined translations and polished cutscenes, while adding a few more user-friendly features, such as quicker battles. Although it's not a night-and-day overhaul, it's likely the most convenient and comprehensive way to experience these classics on modern systems. In an era saturated with games that constantly try to reinvent the wheel, the Lunar Remastered Collection serves as a soothing, delightful throwback. The gameplay may be simple, but it's refreshingly straightforward, backed by a modern challenge that keeps you engaged throughout the entire adventure. Most of all, the real highlights are the characters, its whimsical tone, and the stellar soundtrack, which remain as compelling today as they did decades ago. Whether you're a longtime fan looking to rekindle old memories or a curious newcomer ready to explore RPG history, the Lunar Remastered Collection stands as an excellent choice. Noisy Pixel is giving the Lunar Remastered Collection an 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.